Please feel free to interrupt me or ask any questions you might have as I'm going. Uh, and we'll start again from now. I believe you won this game against Azalea, something 3.5 points, so we'll take a look and see how we navigated to that placement. So far, everything in the opening is quite good. This one is okay. Your OGS 4Q, which could be a number of skill levels really, so I would probably recommend you can consider to play A as well. It's kind of style thing. This one is really defensive, the right side. But the stone is not really about territory here. It's about power to the center. And so R14, okay, it helps stabilize the right side, but it doesn't really boost the effectiveness of Q10 in the center. One of the ways that we sometimes try to use the stone is to play this move at 1, and when white comes into the corner, we can seal white in. This would be the classic Joseki. And this is sort of how we can maximize the impact of our A stone. It's a little bit more whole board cohesion with this type of strategy versus the simple back off. And if white decides, no, I'm in a fighting mood, black can jump back with 3, and you're getting the move at the right side naturally anyway, but with the tempo of getting the first move on the upper side as well. In both of these situations, it's a little bit more active for black to play this way than to simply back off in the opening. So, again, not to say that this one is a mistake or anything, but maybe consideration moving forward if the goal is improvement. Try to play some maybe M17 move and be a little bit more active out of the gate and see how far that can take you. So now white has created two stone position on the upper side. The upper side value is diminished quite a lot. We can count number of spaces as 7 between the stones. This is a moment where as black I would want to pull back. And because the left side happens to be wider than the top side, but also when the white Shamari at A eventually encloses something like F4, F3, E4, E3, one of the main enclosures, right? White's ability to develop up the left side is going to be diminished by the low settled stone at 1 that black has. So again, some more of this whole board strategy at work in the opening here, even with such a simple move like 1. But okay, pinch is not wrong. This one is also okay. Very tight move. Is caring a lot about local result. And then white chooses double approach. And I like this move by white. White recognized the upper side got even smaller by black adding a move, and so white is switching to the more valuable place. Many ways that black can play. Generally speaking, we pick the attachment based on how we want to attack. So, for example, if we make some variation like this, just to show, we've really clamped down on the white A stone. Now, that's not to say the white A stone is dead. We can imagine later in the game white can still create some settled position at the upper side. And black's position might be a little concentrated, but if white does it now, black is okay because black can attack the left side, which was the bigger place anyway. And if white happens to defend the left-hand side, for example, some step like A, then black can take the base on the upper side and remove that continuation from white. So many options here, but it's usually the deciding factor. White invading was perfectly fine, black here was okay, white here was okay, and I believe black tanuki. Yeah. Everything is looking good so far. Of course, black is always aware white has an extension at 1, white has a hane at 2, a hane at 3, and an attachment at 4. These are just some of the more common follow-ups that will be available to white in the shape. So the way that we think about it is all black is really trying to get out of the 4 stones as a very strong group locally that black can then use to handle the left side, for example, pressing white down from A. So white extends, black defends. This is really good, attacking white's base. No issues at all with that. And then white goes for this method, which is a bit hasty, I think. Typically, white is supposed to jump 2 spaces. And the meaning behind this move, we'll have black play tanuki, is that if black ignores it and white goes for the same variation, when black extends at 6, which is black's strongest response in the corner, cutting is going to be working for white because the ladder at 8 is now broken. You can see the stone at 1 is quite useful here. When white does this without the ladder, black's resistance is going to be much more powerful. Now when this cut happens, black will simply turn or capture the stone in a ladder in many cases, and white is going to have a difficult fight on white's hands. Black controls the entirety of the outside pretty convincingly, actually. So it's not really a great spot for white. Some more common options, again, would be the 2-space jump. This would be looking for black to play this move at 2, which is going to protect against that variation. Now the ladder is working again. But then white has the ability to dodge lightly. For example, we can imagine this, or white might even try some combination like here and then Hane. Something to build a light shape outside. If black Hane, white can even consider double Hane. This would allow white to make a good sabaki at the center and start contesting black's power at Q10. A little bit advanced, but worth knowing some of these basic ideas. Here, black played Atari immediately. I would recommend Descend in this case. If white pulls back, this is a good exchange, 2 for 3. Black is making territory, white is on dame. So we shouldn't be afraid this exchange. But in general, we don't like giving white the back door. Now the corner territory has disappeared. So this one, compared to what black could get by descending at P18, is a bit of a loss for black locally. Here, connect, Atari, extend. So black manages to capture the outside in exchange for the corner. The white 2 stones are dead, but they're not really dead. White is still probably never saving these, just so that we're clear. But white will try to use them in endgame for various different types of reductions or things. For black, the biggest concern is going to be the relationship that those two stones may have with this cutting point at A in the future. It's a possibility white may be able to get extra value if white can trade 1 for 2 in Sente and Hane. Which means for black later, it's actually going to be very good value to play this move at 1 as a reverse. So now here white enclosed, and black has a lot of center power that's uncontested and needs to find ways to use it. Many common techniques would be peep at A or press at B. There's a move like C and D against the white corner. There's the press down move at E that your thick tiger's mouth shape is sort of set up for. And these are sort of 5 of the most common ideas. There are many other moves, of course, black can play, but these would be the first 5, at least in my mind, that come up. I believe in the game black chooses to attach here. Playable, in the local sense, I can't say it's a mistake, but it allows white to pick the direction. Generally speaking, when you're the one playing with all the influence and thickness, you need to be the one setting the direction of play. You have to prove that the territory you give up in exchange for this is not going to be enough for the opponent, so you really need to use the initiative to create your potential in such a way that white is going to be forced to play close to it and give you a target. Did you?
I was going to say that makes a lot of sense. I played here hoping for the inside, the corner Hane, and didn't think that I was giving my opponent the option. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, here we give white actually 4 choices, but white is the one making the decision. Something like C, however, or D are fairly forced sequences. If white does not block the corner, then black's break is quite severe. White is going to be losing quite a bit of territory in exchange. So in a situation where the shape can even become like this, even white might descend and black might go here, this is already sort of black setting the pace for the rest of the game. Even this one is kind of similar idea, right? We can make the one exchange and still press, or still come down here, or then maybe we can switch to this one and press down. But like this, black is really keeping consistent the whole board idea. Yeah, here white chooses the outside direction. It's a good choice, I think, for white on this board. And this is sort of giving black the option to play. Now here, normally speaking, when black wants to extend, black gives Atari first and then pulls out. And the main meaning is because we can get this move at 3 with a tempo, because white is necessary to come back and capture. If white doesn't come back and capture, and let's say white plays these exchanges, giving black a very thick shape, white still has to deal with the fact that there's a black move at A. And if white ignores this, then black's extension can kill the white corner and give black a lot of territory. So white would have to go back and finish that stone somehow, here or here. And then black is going to get other benefits based on how white fixes. So for example, this one, black gets a push in Sente. If white ignores this, which is possible, then later black can capture 2 stones and it's quite big. And if white plays Atari from this way, then later black can extend, and after white blocks, there's even a cut at 11 that black can use to short the liberties on white's 2 stones to get even more power in center. We can imagine a variation where white might be considering, okay, maybe I play like this and I go here. No matter what, I'm going to catch 2 of the black stones, right? If black turns, I'll play Atari and they'll be caught, but now we have to worry about black's turn. That's going to force us to defend. Black's attachment is also now Sente. And as a result of this, black is gaining 17, 19, 21 at the expense of white's pre-existing weakness, effectively for free. So usually it's good to make this one to exchange before stepping out at 3. White's going to come back to cut, then we can Hane, and at that point we can choose here. And this is going to leave white with a very interesting choice. Does white take A and end the sequence in Gote? Or does white take B and end the sequence in Sente? If white takes A, black will double Hane. After cut, connect Atari, white owes a move. If white plays away, and black is allowed to push, for example here, white captured, black Hane, white is dead. So in this situation, when black defends, white actually has to go back and either capture the stone or capture from inside the corner to fix that Haji. If white does not extend at 8 and instead captures at B, we get the same sequence, and now white doesn't have to spend any move at the corner because black B3 is no longer Sente to increase black's liberties to win the capturing race. Now white could choose, for example, to Tanuki and break the ladder, or white could of course still play locally with a move like A. Now this is what we would expect to happen. The result of the game situation is that by white getting the Hane and Sente and then the turn, and black never having taken the liberty in G3, white just ends the local sequence significantly better than white was supposed to. Generally speaking, what we would do to compare this is we would look at the number of stones both players played in the corner. And so, for example, black is going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stones, right? And against 9 stones, white has played 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 1 stone more. So that 1 stone in the corner difference should equate to roughly 8 points of territory, and if the result is greater than 8 points in favor of white, then white did significantly better than white was supposed to do. So black, we would count 2 points per stone in the thickness, roughly. So black, we're looking at 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 points, maybe, possibly 10. And white, we're looking at this. And so when we count it, this will be 9, this will be the 10 points black has, and we can see the difference is much greater than 8. So black has fallen quite far behind at this point, at least greater than 1 move worth in the corner. So black is going to have to fight very well in the center, I think, to catch up from now. Now here, white played this one. This is a good move. I can't say it's a mistake. White can also consider turn. It's a little bit more pressure if black ignores. There's always a cut here that black has to be prepared to deal with. And there's also attachments here that can possibly become a Tesuji later to cut black. So taking a liberty is going to have more aggressive intentions for white on the black group. If I was white in this position, I would consider that. If white wants to make a more whole board claim, white can start from this side. And this move at 1 is looking into this ABC gap. It's blocking the access of black's 3 stones to the center and preparing to split. If black tries to come in, for example, something like this, black still has to deal with the weakness that's left behind with this group. So it's going to be very difficult for black to come in if white blocks from this side, as opposed to this one where black can simply come in. Okay, white's defense was a little bit passive here. I think white was concerned with this area and thought to themselves, oh, this is all of my territory, I need to protect this. This is a trap that Q players fall into a lot. And my best advice is to remember that points don't matter until counting. That's the only point where points actually decide the game. So here in the middle game, what is important then? I mean, obviously we want to keep the balance of territory in mind. We need to have points at the end of the game to win. But in general, with the middle game, the important concepts are attack, defense, life, death, weak group, strong group, like management of group phase is kind of what we can think about it. And then when we look at this white group, this is perfectly alive in the corner. It's very strong, very solid. Black can't really do anything to mess with the white group. And when we look at the white group on the left side, it's the same situation, right? White is very thick, very solid, very strong. Black can't do much to mess with this group either. So effectively, from the middle game perspective, what white has accomplished by playing this move is white has now connected two already living groups.
Honey, are you sleeping?
No, I'm watching a review.
And it doesn't really make sense when you think about it from the middle game to spend a whole move connecting two groups that are already alive, right? The value of this move can only be what territory it protects, and it's about 9 to 12 points. It's very small at this point. So what I would have done as white instead is I would have turned my attention back to the black group and I would have begun attacking. For example, something like this, or white could double down from this side again. But I would continue the threat that I made with A. What this one tells me is that white didn't really understand what the threat of their move was. They played that move with their expectation being black was going to simply defend and they were going to get something like this and make a nice moyo. And the minute black took the moyo away, it was kind of like loading the screen in their brain. But really, we have to follow the attack up. And it's very important to do that sort of thing. And so now black effectively got both. Whereas black should have only gotten one, black managed to get both. And some of that lead that you lost earlier, Taylor, you managed to recover here. So good job. Then white is coming from below on the side. This is okay move for territory, but it's not really the point of this game right now. We have to notice what the board is suggesting. And as of right now, there's this really big black framework forming. And the problem with playing low stones in the presence of such a big moyo is that these low stones positionally have a weakness. And that weakness is that they're subject to being pressed from above. So if black can play something like 1 through 5, for example, now all of a sudden black has this wall pointing this way, black has this wall pointing this way, black has this wall pointing up, and black has this thickness pointing in. Where is white's point of entry against black's moyo? White doesn't have much of an encroachment anymore. White's going to have to throw a stone in and pray, which is never a situation you really want to be in. You'd like to lead into having the position where you can sort of naturally encroach the enemy territory. But white doesn't have such an encroachment on this board, and so that's the main weakness.
I have a question.
White
Sorry,
steel.
Chris. So instead of number 7, if you can go to the variation you just played out.
Sure.
I'm just wondering about securing this moyo. Is there a better way to make this like a more secure space? Maybe...
Probably here, then. Whenever you want to make it like really secure, the best thing you can do, Milan, is sacrifice. Because what will happen is you'll play something like this, and if white cuts, you'll simply give the stone up and use that to solidify the border. White doesn't gain much locally.
I see.
Yeah, white doesn't gain much locally, and then black is able to get a solid shape out of the exchange. But other than that, I mean, black could play many different moves, to be honest. Black could start digging into white's bottom and then play the old game out.
Yeah, I was thinking more of that. Of
Yeah.
that instead of the 7
Yeah.
to like make it even bigger.
Yeah, that's also possible.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe it's better, I don't know. It's not really my style to play for big centers, so I'll leave that to Takemiya. But in general...
But it's definitely slow to play inside, right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. This one is more of the attack and defense mentality still, because white can come through like this. And if black doesn't have something in the center, then the black group is still being surrounded. So I tried to be cognizant of that. Of course, black could just defend it with this one too. It's probably good enough. But the main concept is, right, white should not be thinking low territory at this point, because the main idea here is that this is much more urgent.
Yeah, too much influence.
Yeah, so if I'm white in this situation, again, it's kind of like when we look at the white C group, this group is already very low and strong. It doesn't need another extension along the side to improve its position. The position is already alive, pretty much locally as it stands. Black cannot kill it because it has access to the left, the corner, and it's just alive on its own merit. So adding another stone in a space next to a living group is kind of like playing really close to thickness. A living group is the ultimate thickness you can have in Go. Your opponent cannot do anything to a group of 2 eyes, and it's effectively doing the same thing. So if I'm white in this situation, I would be looking for a plethora of different move options. I'd be considering jumping in. I would be considering squeezing from the high position. I would consider going for this to try to get myself a couple of inside stones to start leveraging Sabaki. Maybe I go here next. But white needs to be playing this sort of active light forcing type of move to really deal with black's influence before black has the chance to press white down and consolidate. And so here, the one forcing exchange I think was fine, but this one was a little bit slow, Taylor. We should be taking advantage of white's weakness on the left here and building that fourth wall, so to speak. And here, this whole side for black, very, very solid. This side for black, very, very questionable. If we look, the group does not have 2 eyes, and you are now behind enemy lines. So that should be our key, that we have no business attacking from our strong side. We need to get out from the weak side. You can do it like this, which would be sort of the normal Gote method. Or we could do, for example, like this, or like this, which would be doing it a little bit more in Sente. Main idea being, okay, white can play something like this, for example. Black can give Atari and then bridge through the outside. Black is going to be quite good here. But this one, you're encouraging white to separate you. I don't know why white separated with the knight's move. Attachment would have been better. White can get it in good shape now. In the Tawari, black is never going to reward white with this move generously to give white the exchange back. So knight's move is a little bit risky. Later in the game, black is going to be able to cut. And white's actually going to have to defend this if white doesn't want black driving through and connecting, which is going to give black the free hand to start surrounding or doing something like this, for example, where black can just build the wall and kill it naturally. So this one I think is a mistake for white. I think white should already recognize, okay, this is good enough, and white needs to come back and get the freebie, and then maybe white can start from 5. And now as these exchanges are happening, white is creating a wall here to surround black and also giving a home for this group to run to. So white can handle most of the problems that white has to deal with in a very efficient way. Okay, black does come back, turn, very powerful move. A lot of 4Qs I see miss this. This is a really good exchange for black. Push again, yeah, it's very natural. White's fixing, but now it's okay because the black stone is on the edge of bamboo and is not peeping bamboo, so this one's actually okay shape for black. Black is fine with this. And black has a Sente now, so black can play pretty much wherever black wants. One of the easy moves in endgame would be to play this one. This one's quite big. And aside from that, this one is also a very big reverse for endgame as far as the Yosei goes. Extend is of course playable too. And now it's sort of a question of how is the Moyo going to come together versus how much of a reduction can white actually hope to get. White doing this now was too late. At this point, white needed to come from below. This is going to be worth more in the grand scheme of territory than it would have been otherwise. If black cuts, white might even sacrifice and just use this to gain the benefit in Sente and then take the reverse here. Or if white doesn't want to take that one, white can of course descend. Many different Yosei moves white can consider. But I think this one ended up losing more for white than it gained. And black plays Atari, it's of course okay. White comes in. Was there a reason we don't block here? Seems we're giving white a point for no reason.
I was worried about Aji with the captured stones in the near the corner, but
Yeah, no Aji here. Even if white somehow did manage to make a bunch of forcing exchanges, I don't see a way where white is profitably cutting you here. As long as you don't burn the Liberty at A, I think nothing here locally is going to be working. Yeah, so here, this one I would argue actually makes more Aji because now you have 3 cutting points as opposed to the first block where you only have 2. And white got that big reverse, but black got this one, so it was quite big. This one is also big. You can also consider to push first, actually. This one's quite large. If white bends from the outside, you can actually make these exchanges in Sente and then get the Atari endgame for free. Then you can even push in and start the semi-I procedure. And if white tries to get sneaky, like for example, white plays something like this, you're still going to be able to squeeze an endgame, so... This would have been a really good one. White will probably have to connect here. I would think this would be the biggest in lieu of the T5 Hane. And then you can come back to the move that you played in the game, which was, I believe, this jump. Okay, so white comes in, and then the rest of the game just appears to be endgame. I don't think there's any life and death or anything else that happens, and you ended up winning by 3.5. And a lot of that is, again, attributed to the fact that white just didn't deal with the center quick enough. Even though white got to make some small territory here, white really needed the timing of this move on the side to be something else in the center. So really it was the beginning of the end for move 57. And that was more of a mindset thing for white. So as white, that would be sort of the big ones, I would say. White had a decent advantage, but the advantage was spoiled in part by the 2 marked moves. Alright, and with that, we'll move to the next game.
Thanks. Great lesson on how to play with and against influence. Thank you very much.
Take care. And this one is going to be Jim Matson versus Bing Sheng. And I believe white won this game. It was something like 8.5, but maybe it ended in resignation. We'll see how this one happened. Okay, so far we have low Chinese, and then this is one of the rare instances that kind of takes me back to the 1990s, where we see this low Chinese Fuseki facing off against white Sun Rensei. How exciting. Both of these are Moyo strategies, with the Chinese aiming to create a Moyo at the bottom, from the bottom right, and the Sun Rensei very clearly making a Moyo from the left-hand side. Some players professionally used to play this way with white. I don't know how popular it became, but I think one of the logics that I had learned from some book somewhere was that white is sort of hedging that d10 is going to be better for the whole board compared to something like r9. And then black plays this approach, which is of course okay. f3 might be a little more common given what the Chinese Fuseki goes for, but so far no mistake. And then black is playing the super fast method. We used to see this with Chochkin a lot. Okay, invade and take territory. This is one method, I suppose. Then attach. Well, so far I don't think that black is necessarily making any mistakes per se. If black is going to play this way, it should be noted that black should be pushing at A as quickly as possible. If white ignores this move, Hane is actually quite painful with the potential for black to wedge through like this. Even though there is a cut and white can connect back, black can get a fairly strong shape on the outside at white's expense. With things like this, and if connect, we can jump. White is getting very concentrated towards the bottom, and black is getting a nice solid shape on the outside. So this push is actually quite big. White's probably going to have to answer. Then in the future, black can even push again, which is also big. If white ignores it, it's going to give black a point of entry. So these pushes on the second line in this type of situation are quite important. Okay, black is simply playing this way. I like this one. Pushing up is really good for black's framework. Okay. Cut is possible. Black can also consider to extend or Tiger's Mouth. For Q players, I don't know how strong 4Q and 7Q OGS actually are, but this one will avoid a lot of trouble in the future. Oh, Atari. Normally we don't make the Atari. Generally speaking, if black has to come back and connect, we have to double check and make sure that Tawari for AB is actually going to be a good exchange for black. On this board, it's probably okay if white doesn't have the method to cut quickly. But we also always have to be sort of aware that there are cutting points. And if white can use AB, it can be a little bit risky. Now on this board, we can sort of look at it and see, okay, the most white's going to be able to get is the 3 pushes. But if white is able to get enough liberties to come back and capture, we have to wonder if it's going to be good. Do you need Milan for a moment, Alex?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, pincher. I like this one. Ooh, attachment. White's just trying to settle. This is okay. Push is, of course, fine. Black can also consider to play this one. This one is useful for black when black has the ability to cut through at the next step. So, for example, something like this would be powerful for the corner. This push will allow white to block, which can help white fix white's shape. Now white has one eye, and it's going to be very easy, actually, for white to make a second one. And the A-stone, okay, yeah, black is pushing into the center, but it's not actually helping black when it's sort of smudged against white, black's own 3 stones here. This is sort of removing a lot of the potential that the A push has. So if I'm black, I think I would prefer this one. We're not afraid of white coming out here, because even if we extend and white does go back and fix something like this or like this, white hasn't guaranteed the eye yet, even with the 2-3 push, and black's shape is, of course, already connected. So here I think black makes a small mistake with the direction of black's extension. White attaches in the corner. This one's fairly common. White can also consider to play this one. If black plays like this, white might even consider giving up this connection to black and simply capturing the corner, because white can still escape. And then black hasn't gotten a lot out of the direction of 4, 8, and 6. Alright, so now black is choosing to reduce the left-hand side. This is possible. Oh, whoops, I seem to have misclicked. This is a possible exchange for black. We can consider very often A, attachment at B. We can also consider extend at C, jump at D. These are very common moves. Attachment at E is another common option for black. All sort of with the same idea of creating a reduction against white, building up the center, and allowing the right-hand side black group to really begin expanding into the middle of the board. So this one I like for black. White's defense might be a little clumsy. The overall health of this white group is very stable. So defending in such a passive way seems a bit slack to me. If I'm white and I want to defend, maybe I turn and try to defend a bit more active. Or maybe I just simply pinch and tell black I'm the one attacking you here, I'm strong. White can also consider to play a much more natural move, which is this attachment at 1. Of course, black is aiming to extract the stone somehow in the future, so white has to be aware that black can extend it too. But right now is not going to be a good timing for black to pull the stone out because black's corner's in danger. So black will have to handle the corner situation first. And what this is going to do is, depending on how black chooses to handle the Q3 stone in the bottom right corner, white can set up a position on the outside here that's going to help white in the fighting on the left-hand side later. So just as an example that we can possibly show, with this Hane, for example, white can consider to Hane down if Atari connect. White already has achieved the K3 defense. White can push to make the spacing stable. And after the push, white might consider, okay, now I'm going to pinch black. And if the black group begins to run down and then eventually run east, I've already got a strong presence in the east prepared for that attack. And so white is looking ahead in the future to where this attack on the left might go. And it's allowing white, by getting these exchanges, to play this in a much more finesseful manner, instead of just answering directly, which is only accomplishing capturing the A stone and putting very little pressure on the black B move. Black uses the sacrifice again. This move is okay. I would wait if I was black because we're not entirely sure on this board we want this exchange yet. It's entirely possible that later that this black move can be a tesuji. If white, for example, goes for some cut, black might be able to sacrifice and get some type of net squeeze. For example, something like this, where black's thickness here might be much more useful than what black is getting in the game. So this one exchange here for black is a bit ajikeshi. Black's probably not losing much, but at the same time, there's really no reason to be making it now. And black finally comes back to this push. For the whole game so far, this push has been probably one of the biggest moves for either side. So it's good to see one of them getting back to it. I haven't touched on it since the beginning because it's not really lost any value since then. If white had gotten to block here, for example, all the left side is white's territory and it's not really any trouble for white. Now white's always going to have to worry. Black still has a point of entry. Black could even consider to go one more further inside. If white answers, for example, with the block, then later black has a clamp. And white would love to play Descent, but there's going to be a plethora of different moves black is going to be able to use to build shape here. So it's already not an ideal spot on the left for white. And then black chooses to play M3. This one's very solid territorial. Maybe black is switching for a stance away from the center. More active than M3 would be to start from this side with G3 or H3. And these moves are sort of keeping an eye on the fact that there's cutting points at A and B in white's shape, and we're trying to use the momentum of these cuts to sort of bother the marked stone naturally and surround on a large scale. This will allow us, as white has to defend the stone, this will allow us to really grow the corner in earnest. We can imagine for a minute if white ever made a base here, black might even consider to shoulder hit. This was very, very common when we would look at mini Chinese Fuseki and some other stuff. And if white settled, we would get something like push and then block, and then as white finished the shapes to live, black would get to play something like Ogema at 11, creating the big framework. So this is just a sort of classic example of how black might choose to navigate growing the corner. As it stands, the M3 move, even though the black pinch at H3 is coming, the K3 stone itself is one stone. It's very light. One thing white could try to do from now is Tanuki. White can consider to bother black's big area first. When we compare sizes, black's framework here is much larger than anything white has going on here. So just comparing it based on size, white's move is defending the bottom left by the property that black's right side position was bigger and more valuable. So if it comes down to a trade, white should be gaining more because black is losing out on the bigger piece. It's like a danger levels principle, and white can do that with this shoulder hit, white can do that with this attachment, white can do that with a number of different moves. And in the game, white did in fact play this attachment. So this was really sharp by the white player in this game, handling the bottom right corner. And black is choosing Hane inside, very territorial. If I was black, I would play Hane outside here, simply because if we can reinforce M3 and make a position that's difficult for white to live locally in, for example, something like this, we can get some attacking stance against our enemy and get a lot of benefit in the future by chasing white. We can even imagine something like this, where black is able to grow at the expense of the white group. But this one is kind of one and done. This is going to allow white the option to wrap around this way and then even isolate the one black stone. White chooses to Hane down. Normally this direction is not correct when black has A, because black has the ability to, for example, play Atari like this, and then now the corner position is closed and white does not have a good extension. And black has put a lot of power now behind this A move. It's now got the support of this thick, strong black corner, whereas before it only had the support of one stone. So it's going to be much harder for white to interact with the A stone moving forward. So I don't like this direction a lot for white. Now in the game, black cut and connect and started a fight, which is maybe a bit better for white. If white can block and force black to capture, for example, something like this, we can reverse the position back to where white is the one sort of getting all the good benefit here against the black M3 stun. Okay, but white turned. This one is clearly looking for the ladder break. White wants to set up the working ladder. But the problem is it's not Sente. And so black can just answer white here, which it appears black did. And now the whole white position in the bottom right is beginning to collapse a little. White jumps and defends the area, and then black comes in from above. It's actually probably enough even for black to just jump here and give white the next one. Because black can still come out from 3 in good shape. It's not really going to be possible for white to surround the whole thing super easily. You can imagine something like this. There's going to be a bit of a fight for white to try to hold on to this. And it's not very clear that the fight is going to be working for white. And even if it did, black could of course just jump straight out at 3 and not give that as an option to white at all. This would be a very common dodging technique for black. Black will give up part of the area to white, but white's not going to get everything here. So for black, I like this move at 1, sort of eliminating a lot of the future continuations that the 3 white stones are going to have. But instead, black comes in. Now we have to examine black's M3 stone. Right now, the stone is still a little bit soft, meaning white can try many different things, like, for example, this one or this one. White can bother that stone in many ways, which will also allow white to use the 2 stones inside the threat of bringing them out and making the cut real again. So this one is just a bit loose, potentially going to be better for white. But okay, black gets the solid encroachment. This push is playable. Also possible locally, black can play Tiger's Mouth. Now there's not a working cut for white because black can play this Atari to capture. But the push is looking ahead for Hane, so we're trying to get this move, which if black can take it, should be quite good. But it's contingent on whether or not this cut is going to always be working for black. As it stands right now, if we read the ladder capture, this one is going to be successful for white. And if we look at some net idea that black might have, for example like this, black can connect through, but white's going to capture 2 stones. So it seems this one might be slight overplay. Maybe black should go to this place instead. Okay, but white extended, black is playing here. This is blocking the ladder of the cut in a very active way while growing. So far I like it. If white is able to hold, to break the right-hand side effectively, then I think white is going to have a really good game. But if black is able to hold on to quite a bit of the right-hand side, I think the game is going to be very good for black. Here, maybe black needed to sacrifice. If white plays like this, black can even make the 1 exchange, come back for Atari, and then like this, black can keep. We can double jump, for example, or black can consider the Ikentobi and then seal with this one or knight's move. Something like this will help black hold on to the right-hand side. But connecting and allowing white to cut through is creating a lot of weak points in black's shape. The group at A doesn't have 2 eyes. There's a cut at B, a cut at C. There's a floating stone out at D that's not connected to anything. White has a lot of stuff that white can work with. Now, later in the future, white is going to be considering, can I play 1 or can I descend and get good forcing moves out of the corner this way? With descend, black only has 3 liberties. So it's going to be a very big move for white in the future if white gets it. Here, white opted for block and allowed black to capture, which might have been a small mistake. I think white should at the very least take this one. We're not really concerned with black blocking because the block can always be met with jump at the 2nd line or jump on the 3rd line in many cases. And the corner position for black, if black tries to extend liberties at 4, is not alive. This would be a locally dead shape, the L group. One of the must-know life and death, if you want to be a Don level player. And probably white is going to be able to kill the corner before black can kill either white group. So I think that this extension was valuable for white, and somehow I think white missed it. Okay, here black connected. It's a bit strange. White is already alive, so white A alive, white B alive. This ties into the concept from last game. If white cuts and captures and connects two living groups, it's very small for white to do that. White doesn't have any extra benefit of defending something that needed defensing. And so instead black can actually just Tanuki now and take a much bigger area. Connecting here didn't really accomplish much. Black doesn't have a follow-up because both groups are alive. Then white got to spend the first move coming in to break the side. Tari is very solid. White extended, black pushed, white extended, and then black finally sealed. Now white is attempting to manufacture life and death here. And if black manages to kill this, black is going to be successful. And so far it seems white is dead. Okay. Black missed the move. So probably black was wondering how black can go about killing here. This one was not the move. If anything, black needed to either capture one stone or extend. If white happens to capture now, black can throw in. If white descends like this, black can connect, white is dead. So this one is a life and death error by black. This extension at 1 should just be working. From now, white gets the one key forcing move, and it's going to be impossible for white to be dead. If black has to connect, white gets to connect, white will live. And if black takes the ko, white gets the cut from below. And it's again going to be a situation where, even though there's a ko fight involved, white can still have a chance at a second die. And white gets to this, and the second die is becoming formed. Captures, captures. So black gave up on the idea of trying to fight a ko to win it. White's just going to play here. Black can't connect because captures, and if black connects this way, then white will just take everything. So yeah, black realized, okay, white's going to live, and now black's lead has diminished significantly. White's left side has become very big. Black really needs to start digging into that left side now, if at all possible. And black chooses to do it with this move. Okay, yeah, playable. White comes in, black comes in. Turn block. Oh, how painful. So black had a misreading with this move. Black thought he had enough liberties. But it's only true if black can connect home and black couldn't. So probably at this point, black needed to play the push, and if white played Hane here, black needed to connect. If throw-in captures connect, black can fix inside, white can get this, black can connect. And like this, black would have destroyed a lot of the left-hand territory, and the game would have gone a little bit further in endgame. But due to the reading mistake of black here, it appears this is where black has resigned, and I agree, after this, white is now definitively leading. Overall, it was a very good game for black. I think just a small mistake in direction at the beginning with the L15 push and some other stuff sort of led to white getting a little bit more than white should have gotten. And then I think the real culprit for snatching defeat from the jaws of victory for the black player this game was the misread and the life and death on the right-hand side. Alright, so moving on to last game. This one is Arunas' game. Hello, Arunas. Welcome. And so we will continue from now. And so you won this game very handily. We'll see how that happened. Alright, we get the fighting Joseki. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I don't really know a lot of this Joseki, so... but so far it seems like both players are handling it very well. Nobody has managed to die yet, so... we just sort of look at the end result and see what's going on.
Yeah, so my idea was that this group on the right side is going to be a target for a long time.
Sure.
And that's going to enable me to play far away from it. And in a sense, that's kind of what ended up happening.
Yeah, white has gotten 2 useful cutting stones out of the sequence, and white is quite alive on the right. The
Yeah.
bottom group is still a bit questionable, but it's strong enough at the moment because the black A group is weak.
Yes.
We save the cutting stones.
Mm-hmm.
Black attacks. White connected. Okay, so normally in the shape we're going here.
Okay.
Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that, okay, we are leaving a cut, but even though we're leaving the cut, we have many ways to draw the stones out if need be, for example, like this.
Right.
Now, this is probably not good for white, this type of fighting. It's very vulgar. White's shape is getting split. But white has this idea later in the game if black cuts. And also, the other key being, you're defending the key cutting stones, which are the ones that have a base and are making points, and you're doing it in a way that's giving white territory. Now, granted, because you're fighting, I can understand why you want to connect. It's going to make the game very difficult, though, when black gets to go here next.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like a question of, do I want to play the dame of A and give up the key point of B? Or do I want to take the key point of B and allow my opponent to end the fight, which is going to be okay for black, right? Black's weak group is now safe, and white is the only one with a weak group left, which would be these 5 stones. But at the end of the day, it's only one weak white group, and black still has the 2 cutting stones at 011 that white can bother in the fight. And so probably it's playable. And your compensation for giving black the connection is you get the bottom territory. So really, it's a choice. I don't know which choice is better, but my inclination would be to play this one.
Yeah.
You end up getting both anyway, so that's always exciting. Yeah, jump is a key point. And here, I can't say that this one is bad. It's good for black on the upper side for sure. But generally speaking, when black has this weak group that's engaged in a running fight with white's weak group, we prefer to chase from the weak side, not the strong side.
Yeah.
So it seems to me it might make more sense for black to try some other move at the center, or possibly even Tanuki from now. Because pushing white out along this way, even if white just jumps again, is sort of self-harm to the black bottom right group. Black is eventually going to have to give the moves back to white. And now what we've noticed is black has created knight's move at the 5th line, elephant jump, many weak points that white gets to exploit later. So it's really not great direction. Maybe another Kosumi would have been powerful. Maybe it was even possible for black to peep and then jump back to 3.
Yeah.
Some such like this. Maybe we even just jump to 3 directly, break the horse's head, and tell white, okay, you can go towards the upper side. That's fine. If you want to play up there, I'll just keep my group connected, or I'll just keep chasing you. And it's going to be, okay, probably hard for white to separate everything here. So maybe it's good enough for black to get away with this.
Yeah.
But in general, I think this direction is a bit overplay much for black. Now black's shape got broken, and white got to fix a lot of white's problems by Senpei.
Yep.
White is very happy with this.
Yep.
Possible to play this way. You can also consider just connecting, Arunas. Black has to come back here anyway, and
I did consider that.
there's no reason to make 3-4 exchange yet. So when black is going to answer in the same way, oftentimes the solid connection is slightly better, just to save the liquidity.
Okay.
Okay, and then knight's move. This is possible, but if we're going to play something like that, I would prefer playing a little bit more against the center, maybe something like this one.
Oh, okay.
It's hard for black to come through, because black is going to have to deal with the ramifications of this fight. He doesn't have the F17 stone yet. Or white could even play this one if white's worried about the cut. You can play this and then extend, but keep pressure and lead the group out that way. Sort of moving a little further ahead. Okay, you just give him the top. That's very patient.
Yeah.
And then we split. Okay. Split, lean, block. This is very good for white. How could black have done different? Honestly, it's hard to say. Probably, if black wanted to play a little different, black could have played one further. This would have a little bit more impact against the corner as far as follow-up goes. We can imagine a block at 3 or pressing against the corner like this. If white ignores the second follow-up, white's losing a lot. So this one would have been a little bit better. But once white starts to separate, it's going to be a big fight at the center of the board. One of the things black might be able to look forward to in the fight is the fact that white is in pretty bad shape here. And maybe white can do something against, or black can do something against the white bottom group during the fight to ensure that his group comes out. So it looks like black is trying to do something like that with this move. So I don't hate this idea. I like this idea a lot. Extending is okay. It's possible. White got to defend, yeah. And black turn, push, block, Hane. Okay, this is all fairly. It's a sequence. I think in this game something happens in the center, right? And that's really what we should take a look at. We're running low on time. And it was a case where black had to make a life here, right?
Yes.
And then black failed to do so.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like here maybe black needed to just simply play this one. Is this one working? Probably it's the best shot, at least with the preliminary, not reading, but like just sort of glancing. This one might work better than what black chose in the game.
Right.
Once black ended up dying here, though, white is pretty comfortably ahead.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that the left-hand side not recognizing until b9 that black was actually dying here.
Yeah.
That's a good job, you know. But a lot of the reason that kind of happens in these types of fighting situations really just comes down to playing moves that lose tempo. So like d7 is a big culprit. That move doesn't have a very powerful follow-up, so it's losing a bit of tempo. And e3 was a great idea, but f3 also lost tempo. It would have usually made more sense for black to consider something else, like A or B, sometimes even C. Something a bit more forcing that's going to keep white's attention attached to the corner so that black can get outside forcing moves. So for the black player in this game, Will Z, I would recommend just keeping that kind of thing in mind when you're fighting like this. On the knife's edge, the tempo is really important. You can't afford to make slow moves that don't have impactful follow-ups. Even just going straight to h3 would have been better for black than answering white's Hane. Considering that e3 for e4 was a forcing move to begin with, that alone is warrant enough to not defend it. Alright, and with that, we're pretty much right at time. I'm going to go ahead